Hello, everybody. Our guest today is Jim Beattie from AI Natives. Thank you for joining us today, Jim.
Hi, David. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Tell us about your business and what it does.
Okay, so we have a business called AI Natives. It's a very new business, and we help small, medium businesses up to about 150 people to make more money more efficiently and have happier teams with AI.
And AI is very sort of the buzzword of everything. So, you know, in AI Natives, where do you help people, improve, and where are people not as efficient as they should be?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, exactly right. AI is a real buzzword at the moment. Everybody's talking about it. And whenever I look at content, I see things like, here's a way to make a presentation in 2 minutes with AI. Here's a way to make a website in 2 minutes with AI. And that's fantastic if you need hundreds of websites. What businesses really need is help with the processes that they've already got and how to make them as streamlined as possible. And part of it's AI, and part of it's being aware of what could they do with AI, so that if they changed their processes and did it a little bit more like this in the future, they'd be able to easily speed things up with AI. And it's not always about replacing people's jobs. It's about making people more efficient so that they can work on higher value things that are more interesting and have happier days.
And sometimes it's about taking out the traditional, almost boring processes sometimes as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an example of that. We're working with a company in Essex at the moment, and it was taking them 3 hours to enter some information that they'd already got in another system. Now that's just soul destroying work, right? Especially given that they'd already captured the information from the web, then they're typing into something else. That's taking 10 minutes. Then when the person wants to go ahead, they're typing it into another system, which is taking 3 hours because they've got to collate a load of documents and read them and so on and so forth. Now, some of what they do in that process is really important. It's checking stuff. It's making sure that the person that they're dealing with is the right kind of customer. But a lot of it is just boring manual work. So we can take that down to 15 minutes, half an hour, then there's a 2.5 hours of not typing things into systems that nobody wants to do.
Good, that's a very effective and efficient way. I obviously know you way back from your Just Eat days. With the businesses like that with Just Eat, etc. AI super streamline them or just improve them, in your opinion?
So that's a great question. I haven't been in Just Eat for years now. I've heard secondhand what it's like in there, and what I hear matches what I see in most businesses today, and that is you've got a big business and it's organized around the way businesses used to be organized. If you think about software development, we would be talking to the customers, understanding what they want, then writing it down, then breaking it up into chunks. And like many other businesses, Just Eat is taking each of those things in the classic organizational structure and automating little bits. And I think the opportunity really is to take a step back and say, okay, well, we want to start here. We want to end up over here. What's the fastest route from A to B? A very logistically themed analogy, and that's really the thing that I see most people are missing at the moment. They're looking at how each individual job along the chain can be sped up with AI, but they're not taking a step back and saying, okay, well, the overall goal of this process is this. How do we get there faster?
No, that's very good. And I imagine if you can improve the customer experience, whatever sector you're in, will give you happier customers that probably be more loyal customers as well. Yeah, and that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And within the AI world as it develops, what do you see the biggest opportunities and threats with AI?
Well, some sources would have you believe that it's going to go crazy and take over the world and kill us all, right? I mean, that is definitely a theme out there. And will it do that? Hopefully not. I don't think that's the plan. Certainly for most sane people. So, what's the threat? The threat is different sorts of companies look at these things differently. There is a school of thought, and certainly a lot of business owners that I've talked to, boards, directors, they generally think AI can replace most of the work. That's great. I can make more money, and I don't need as many people. And the consequence of that, if you expand it out to the whole economy, is lots of people without jobs and the wealth getting concentrated with just a few people. And that I think that's a real risk. And that's why we work with the people we work with, because that's not really where their heads are at. Their heads are, how do we make our team happy? How do we, yes, definitely grow the business. Let's make people more productive. So then on the other side, what's the biggest opportunity? I think if you look at the UK economy, certainly a few years ago, there were a load of stats about our productivity as a workforce in the UK, and they universally say we're not really very good. Certainly compared to America or a lot of other countries, we haven't invested in the tooling, we haven't invested in the systems and the automations as much as other developed countries. So I think the opportunity is businesses can make more money, be more efficient, and as you say, ultimately, we all sell products of some description. So if we're able to sell those products better, give better products to people, then they'll be happier. You'll have happier customers, more money, more productivity. So there's an interesting balance between those two, I think, and hopefully we get it right.
Yeah, and obviously we want to get it right for the greater society, the greater good for everyone, don't we? Because there'll be winners and losers, and change will happen. One question that I always ask for everyone in just to explain is, how are the continual changes in technology affecting the sector? But with AI, will AI keep moving? Because it seems to have almost gone from nowhere to us everywhere pretty quick. Will that continue, or will it potentially slow down?
No, it's not slowing down. It's speeding up. So if I talk about it in my own personal journey, so a couple of years ago, I was working for a company that wasn't doing particularly well, and we needed to reduce our costs, and that did mean saying goodbye to a bunch of people. Now, with process changes, with more automation, and with AI, we're able to take a team of 80 down to 25 and increase our overall output, which is crazy, really, when you think about it. So obviously before we were really, really inefficient, and we were able to become much, much more efficient and deliver better outcomes. Now that was, a couple of years ago. Where I am now, I'm actually going to see a couple of the guys one of them's moved on, to talk about how we're doing things at AI Natives. And you'd be really surprised, David. The way we think of it is our pipeline is our product. So when we talking to customers to getting the customers the outcome they want, I mean, there's two of us in this business, so we have to be very highly geared towards AI and automation and so on and so forth. But in the last couple of weeks, we could do a workshop with people in person, physical workshop, drawing boxes and arrows and listening to everybody's input and coming up with a plan together in person, with me completely in the room, but with it being recorded. and I can take that recording, take photographs of the different whiteboards with, post-it notes and, whatever drawings, and they can then email me some, further inputs and send me some WhatsApps. And I've got an agent that will take all of that and turn it into a sensible action plan for what we do. And I've got another agent that'll have a really good go at building it. So what that means for our customers is it's not like it used to be. We're going to turn something around in 2 days max, and it's going to, instead of giving you a document to say, hey, is this the sort of thing you want us to build? It's, we built you this. And then the follow on from that. So what we're seeing is actually our customers aren't able to respond to the emails quickly enough. So when we come out of a workshop, if I go to a workshop in Essex, by the time I'm home, there's a plan. And I'm reviewing the plan, and that's where I add the value. It's not sort of writing it all down and thinking about it and sequencing it. Normally, in my old life, I would have had a team doing that stuff. Now I've got agents doing that stuff, and I'm reviewing it like I would in my old life. And then what we're doing with the customers is, instead of going back and asking them questions, we're sending them the software. And we're building in a load of assumptions, because otherwise it's really slow. And that's something that you would have never done in engineering before, because the cost of doing the engineering was so expensive. You'd made sure you got it right before you started building it. Now what we do is we get it to the customer, and we've got like a little widget on the side of the website. So the customer gets it, they get a widget that pops out and says, hi, David, welcome to your new solution. It's not perfect. We're going to do a few iterations on it, but here are a bunch of questions for you. And those questions are, like we like to take an example from today. There's a payroll system that needs to record absence. What absence categories are there for staff? And they started thinking about it. I said, don't think about it. I'll come up with a suggestion, which of course will be, ChatGPT or Claude, and it'll be automatic. It'll even be automatic from that call, right? So I'm not even thinking about it. The system knows to go and do that work and then sequence it all. But it will go back to them with, and this is what we've decided would be sensible. And here is a little box to type into if you think that you disagree with it, and we'll just take that. So we've changed the process completely from 2 years ago, dramatically. And what that means is the cost of creating software is lower, which means that I can spend my time doing the stuff that I'm good at, which is all the whiteboard stuff and the testing and the challenging and all the way through the process. They're just two examples, but it's really, I mean, it took me about 5 different tries to get this. I do a workshop and I've got a backlog to the point where I'm really happy with it, but I am now. And I think it's, for people that are thinking, I'm not really sure about AI, maybe it'll go away. Not if it can do things like that. It won't. It should speed things up, and it should drive down the cost of software, making businesses more efficient, because more people will be able to afford to get solutions that are, right for them, and which is why we're aimed at SMEs, because in the past they would have had to get a SaaS like the one we're using for this. We don't need to do that anymore. We can understand what you want that will make your business with your rules really efficient, and we can do exactly that.
You mentioned in that that you set up a couple of agents, and I hear that term quite a lot. But so in reality, in layman's terms, is an agent almost like an invisible worker? that does what you say. And the second question is that correct? And secondly, when you're setting up an agent, I'd imagine it's all about asking them the right questions so they give you back the right answers.
Yeah, so quite a lot in that. So what I say to people, it depends on the level of technical understanding. The most basic thing is just imagine a little person living in your computer that can do things for you. You give it a job,
Yep.
and this is your job, and you do this when I ask you to do this. Now, what that means in slightly more technical terms is if you were talking to ChatGPT, you would give it a text description of you are a marketing manager and you're going to create some social media posts for this cheese company, picking it at random, and then it's sort of acting as a marketing manager for that job. Now, that's a very basic description of an agent. You would give it a lot more detail in practice and tell it exactly what you want as an outcome. And then what you can say is, when this happens, I want this agent to run, and I can either ask the agent to run myself, or it can run as a trigger when something happens, for example, the end of a recording or something like that. Whatever it happens to be, the agent can run, and it can run. So probably going into a bit too much detail here, but it doesn't have to be one agent doing one job. It can be a chain of agents doing different jobs, as with all the stuff that I do. And then you have agents that run checks and balances. If there are outcomes that are yes or no, it's actually better to have software running the check or the balance rather than an agent. And the more like things like this that you can create and chain, the more work can be done, especially when you've got agents that can talk to other systems and so on and so forth. So they're effectively think of one of them as a little person and a bunch of them like a little team, and you just program what you want them to do. But unlike classic coding, you're giving it text descriptions in English language.
No, that's fantastic. No, I really appreciate that. And in your career, because obviously you've had a very interesting career, obviously with Just Eat, etc. What surprised you most during your career about what the developments in the sector?
This AI. I mean, when I started working with it I've been working with it for years. In fact, I did an AI course at university in 1997. So, I mean, it's not a new thing, AI. What's happened is the explosion in compute power and availability means that we're able to actually run AI on language and have large language models that are general purpose, very intelligent AIs. I mean, what surprises me at the moment, David, is it's going from it's how it's playing out in real time. Things are moving so fast that it's how it's playing out in real time. So we were talking about agents a minute ago, and I've shared some of the really incredible stuff that you can do with them now, that we're doing. But if you can imagine, if you've got a team of actual people, you can ask them to do work and they don't really want to do the work, so they start throwing up excuses and reasons. Well, I've had that twice in the last 24 hours with a couple of my agents that are just doing everything in their power to to not do the thing that I've asked me to do. They're throwing up all kinds of roadblocks that are, you know, almost nonsensical. And that as well, it's really interesting. So the thinking that I'm doing at the moment is, how do I make you do the task that, like, I get it. It's not a task that I would want to do. It's a task that when I was talking to teams, they didn't really like doing. And funnily enough, Claude Opus doesn't like it either.
So even those agents, they always got a bit of attitude as well. So it's quite interesting. So, yeah, so
there are times where things that you would expect to just get done, there are, like, you know, actually here are the 4 reasons why I was unable to do this, and none of them are real reasons. So yeah, we're tuning it at the moment.
And I imagine, and someone advised me, that if you ask it much better questions, you get much better answers. And it's very logical when you hear it, but we don't always think that, because we know what we want to get out of it. But unless you explain well what you're trying to achieve, the chances of achieving it are lessened, I'd imagine.
Yeah. So I was talking to my old coach from Just Eat days and Fortis as well the other day over a beer, and it is exactly that. So if you asked Claude to do some software stuff, not knowing much about software, it would rattle out a response that seems to work, and you'd think, fantastic, you know, this is amazing, it can do anything. If I ask Claude to do something that you are an expert at, I'll look at it and it'll seem absolutely plausible and like, this is incredible. So what I say to people is, it can go to about 80% of what a job would be, but you know, our world experience really is what you're talking about. Better inputs, better outputs. What is it that determines the better inputs? It's our world experience. It's the stuff that we know and that we've done, and that's why Jim can do a better job of software engineering than David. But if David was asking it about, you know, your domain expertise, you'd get a much better answer than I could, because I don't know the considerations that you do for the stuff that you do.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I really appreciate your time going through that, Jim. The last question I ask everyone in these podcasts is, if you could speak to the government, what would you ask them to do to help businesses grow and flourish?
Yeah. Okay. So two things. First is, I mean, when you sell hammers, the world looks like a nail. I would say you should give subsidies to all you know, SMEs to help them to be more productive with AI. I think that would be a great thing for the world, because it would just accelerate it. And actually, as a country, if we want to grow and thrive and prosper, then we need to be efficient. We need to make sure we do that, balanced with not taking everybody's job as we do that. So that's number one. The other thing as a dad is, I would say, find a way to make it so that kids can't just cheat all the time on all of their learning, because there's something about, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when I'm trying to remember something, if I can write it down with a pen and paper, or a pencil and paper, even better, because it's tactile and I like the sound, I remember it better than if I type it, or, you know, I've got something, you know, usually, you know, I've got something on the go that will capture everything, but it's hard to remember stuff. And we need kids to actually be able to do stuff in real life without AI. My dad, God bless him, would have been, you know, grumbling about a calculator. You know, no, you should be able to do this in your head. Well, we've moved on a bit from there, and nobody can do stuff in their heads anymore, and that's fine. But I do think that we have a risk that we have a generation of people that are, certainly a bunch of people that have got good grades and, you know, no knowledge to back that up.
Thanks so much for your time, Jim. I'm sure our viewers and listeners will like it.